I'm Tori Bedford. Tonight on Greater Boston, a look at the Newton teachers' strike 5 school days in. Then a dark milestone for gun violence in America. I'll talk to a mother about her fight for protection and prevention. Plus, what the state's ban on life without parole for offenders under 21 years old means for those serving time. And could an expanded bottle bill help clean Massachusetts litter or hurt its recycling efforts? Students in Newton were home from school for the 5th day as their teachers strike for higher pay and better working conditions. This strike is one of the longest of its kind in recent Massachusetts history. Picketing outside the State House this morning, teachers argued.
We're not backing down. We're doing this not just for our teacher salaries. We're doing this for our students. We're getting social workers in every school. We want our Unit C aides to be paid a fair wage, and we're not going to stop until we get what we want.
To break down how those negotiations are going, I'm joined by GBH reporter and editor Mark Herz. Mark, thank you so much for being here. So parents are frustrated. This has been going on for so long. I mean, what can we tell them? Where is this going? When will this come to an end?
Well, I don't have a crystal ball, Tori, but I can tell you that they've made progress on parental leave and cost of living adjustments for teachers. I think, as we just heard in that clip, teachers' aides, that's still a sticking point. Getting social workers in every school, that may still be a sticking point. And you know, the teachers' aides, I know we had the head of the school committee on this program just recently, and you questioned him about that. It sounds like at least what's on the table right now is just bumping it up from about the starting first-year salary for a full-time teacher's aide from around $27,000 to around $30,000. That's still well below a living wage. If you look at like an online calculator for Massachusetts, a living wage for a single adult with no children would be $44,000 a year. So when the union says they want a living wage for teachers' aides, many of whom worked with special ed students, mind you, that sounds like there's quite a chasm to cross there.
Right, you're talking about our conversation with Chris Bresky, who said that
Yes.
He argued that this is a competitive wage for those Unit C paraprofessional employees, so people that are assisting in the classrooms. He said that's actually above average for that role, but it's still, as you mentioned, that's one of the biggest sticking points in these negotiations. What are some of the other things that are keeping people out on the picket line?
Well, like I said, they're looking for cost of living raises, and the last I heard from the big union, the mother union, Massachusetts Teachers Association, there's been some progress made on that. There's been progress made on increasing family leave for teachers, which is something they're very invested in. They say they're not getting enough. So I guess until those are really resolved, yeah, this could drag on. And as you said up top, this has gone on. It's tied for the longest right now, and it's certainly over the last year and little over a year and a half, we've seen 6 districts go out on strike, all successful, mind you, in the end. And this is certainly the largest. We've got almost 12,000 kids out of school now for this many days in a row.
And we've talked about the role of behavioral health, like health teachers and special educators. This is Newton North High School special education teacher Brian Rooney out at a protest today.
I'm a special educator. I work so closely with Unit C members, our special ed aides and behavior therapists within the building. These people are the heart and soul of our school community. They're the ones who spend the most time providing the most support to our most vulnerable students. So I got into this fight because it's not okay that Newton, a wealthy community, is only paying these people $27,000 a year.
So these strikes are illegal. It's illegal for teachers in Massachusetts to strike, and court-imposed fines now are expected to total something like $175,000. I know there's some legislation that's been written. Is there any kind of hope for, just to make these kind of strikes legal, is there any hope for unions in that regard? Is that a path for any hope for them?
In a word, no. Governor Healy is not in favor of this. I don't foresee a pathway for her to be changing her mind on that as much as unions would like to see. And the fact is, Tori, as you mentioned, these fines are large, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars now over all the strikes that have recently taken place. But apparently the unions have the war chest and they're willing to spend the money to have a successful strike.
All right. Well, thank you for keeping us up to date on this. We will be following your coverage, and yeah, I guess hopefully we can get to a resolution. Thanks so much, Mark. Mark Herz.
You're welcome.
Soon, the United States will mark an alarming milestone. By early February, more people will have died from gun violence here than in any other high-income countries. In Boston, families impacted by this violence continue to come together to raise awareness and work towards prevention. To share more on how they're working towards their goal, I'm joined by Alexis Smith, a Dorchester mother who lost her son Ameen to gun violence in 2017. So first of all, I just wanted to thank you for being here and say I'm so sorry for your loss, and also for the fact that you have been spending so many years without closure, because there's still no one that's been charged in that case, right? It's been something like 7 years.
It's going on December 8th, 2017 will be 7 years.
Yeah, I'm so sorry.
Thank you.
I think that night he was just caught in crossfire, right? He was at a basketball game with his friends in Mission Hill. Can you tell me what you remember from that night?
Well, I remember I was getting ready to attend a friend's birthday party, and I was just walking in circles oddly for some reason, and I just felt something wasn't right, but I couldn't put a finger on what that was about. And shortly after I got a phone call stating that my son had been shot, I had called around to find out where he was. At first, I was sent to Boston Medical Center, what happened to be the wrong hospital. And then they directed me to the right one, which was Beth Israel Deaconess Center. So I went there, and when I arrived, my family was there, the doctors were there, and they briefed me on what was Ameen's condition and what they were doing to try to save his life. They allowed me to see him briefly, and I just prayed and, stepped out the room so that they can continue to try to save my son.
Yeah, and you've been kind of, I don't know, I can't imagine, but just kind of processing this, and then also coming together with other survivors to highlight the importance of this issue, right? I mean, just in that year, I think he was one of 14 homicide victims in Boston under the age of 20 years old.
Yes.
And we always talk about, I think, youth violence is increasing as a problem, but I don't want to just talk about it as a statistic either, right? Like, who was Ameen?
Ameen was a very vibrant, loving, gentle gentleman that was a Division I basketball player. He played for a traveling basketball team through AAU, which was called the Boston Spartans. He went to the Epiphany Middle School, which is located in Dorchester. So it was a full day of school from 6:45 in the morning all the way till 7 p.m. because they felt it would be really good for the kids' after-school program to be implemented into their day to combat just different things that could create children to struggle. So they created a full day of support, and also if a parent needed help with homework and they were, having a little bit of challenge in that area, if they didn't finish themselves, they provided extra support for the children, boarding school, track. Me played for their soccer team as well as ran track for them. And it was a beautiful experience. It's one of the healthiest experiences that he had. He graduated from there. He got the Emergent Scholar Award, the Gentleman Award, the 1-2-3 Kid Award, because he was just a vibrant person and brought a lot to his community. And he had a lot of amazing friends that loved him and that he had a positive relationship with. As he left that school, things started to change for some reason. All of the support that we was getting that was very healthy for him. Even him going to a sailboat camp at Thompson Island, he became a voyager, and he was a ship. He had also received another award from them on learning how to sail a big sailboat. So he was involved in a lot of productive things through that school, and it just changed after that for us.
Yeah, I mean, those are also, I think, when the topic of gun violence or community violence comes up, people often talk about those kinds of programs, right, to keep kids invested in their community and working and doing, like you mentioned, and he was doing all of that stuff. How have you I think that you have given back in a lot of ways to that kind of stuff, right? And the moms who have to go through this and the work that you've had to do to process this, it's heartbreaking. But how have you kind of found community and advocacy in the past 7 years?
Well, it's something that I've been doing before this happened to me and Ameen. I would volunteer at his school and support him since elementary school because he was struggling with suicide. And at that time, I was going to school and working, but I had to drop everything because his life counted on my active presence as a mother. So being in community with the children, going to church camp as a young girl, and being a part of different type of sports and community events that were, implemented for children in my community when I was younger, had created that for me to continue to be a community member and support the people in the city, people around us. It's a part of something that we are supposed to partake in. So with that happening and after that, my plan was always save lives and help families. Since I was a little girl, that was part of my legacy. So I do it naturally because it's who I am, and it's something that I've been passionate about for years, and I did it with Ameen and his peers. So I figured that it was important for me to continue because there's a lot of his friends and people in the community that has been affected by what occurred. So I thought if I can show them what it's like to heal and to get up and be strong and walk in their two shoes and to honor their loved one in a very loving, kind way, I can create a change of a narrative that's been going on in my city for a very long time.
Right, you grew up here and you were a victim of gun violence when you were a child.
Yes.
As well.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I was 12 and a half years old. This happened on Halloween in 1994. I was heading home from spending time with friends, and there was a drive-by shooting, and I was running, trying to save myself, and before I could enter the hallway to find coverage, that's when I felt the pellets, or at the time I didn't know that's what they were. Over 30-something pellets had entered my body, and my lung collapsed, and I almost didn't make it, but I'm grateful I'm here to be able to still do things in life, but my future was altered because I could no longer play sports. So yeah, that changed a lot for me in my direction. But I still try to be grateful that I have some life and future left to do other things that I'm very passionate about, like this community work I do, and being an ambassador, and doing 3D healing art and working with the kids at the Peace Institute, Madison Park.
You mentioned the Louis D. Brown Peace Institute, and then also Boston Moms Demand Action. So you're going to be at this event on Saturday, which is at the UU Urban Ministry in Roxbury at 1 p.m. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, my plan is to continue to share Ameen's story and bring awareness to gun violence and what's happening in our city, and how parents and children need more support, hands-on support, in our own mentors, advisors, social workers, to support families when others are dropping the ball and not showing up and honoring and sharing the resources that are sent here to our state to help families when they're coming to them and saying, hey, this is my dynamic, this is what's going on, and I need your help. And the consistency is something that really needs to change. So I try to be consistent for people and show up for them, because I know that it can make a big difference in their lives on an everyday basis. It's the small things that count, they say. Yeah. So me showing up, it helps. And that's good for me to know that what I do is gonna create a difference for families tomorrow in the way that me and Ameen asked. So yeah, that's my goal for this Saturday, is just to bring more awareness and to let my community know that I'm here to support them and to show them how you can turn your pain into purpose.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much, Alexis. Thanks for being here.
You're welcome.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks. The Massachusetts Parole Board is gearing up to hear hundreds of new cases after the state's highest court banned life without parole for people under 21 years old. The change is retroactive, so people who were sentenced when they were minors now have the chance to prove they are reformed and can safely re-enter society. Joining me now is GBH News reporter behind this story, Sarah Betancourt, and Mara Voukidis, director of the Committee for Public Counsel Services Parole Advocacy Unit. Thank you both so much for being here. So this is a big deal. I mean, this is a decision like this hasn't been made since 2013, when Massachusetts made it so that people under the age of 18 couldn't be, given a life sentence without the possibility of parole. What does this mean, and who does this affect, Sarah?
I mean, it's the first kind of its decision in the nation, and I mean, I think something that's really important to recognize is that over the past few years, there's been a lot of task forces looking at brain science and the decision-making for young men and women who have committed crimes when they're younger, been sentenced, and then are spending their entire lives behind bars. And now people are realizing, hey, some of the science proves that maybe they weren't having the best decisions and they're changed people since then. So we need to consider that in our policy making.
Yeah, I mean, this is relatively new neuroscientific research that's just been incorporated into this decision. I spoke with Stephanie Tabashnak, who is at Harvard and helped write the white paper that informed some of this research. And she was saying that, up until really the age of 25, I think she said it was like your frontal lobe's not developed, your decision-making abilities, the influence of peers, right? She said it's like driving a Ferrari with smart car brakes, right? Like, I think that she was even saying that, this decision, your ability in your brain to make these kinds of decisions isn't fully formed until you're 25. So if it was really in line with the science, it could potentially go even higher. But now for CPCS, right, like what does this mean for you, right? Like what is the process in dealing with, I think the state said there were an estimated 200 people who will now be eligible. Some of those people are a lot older as well, and have been serving time already. What's that process going to look like?
Yeah, so there are a little over 200 people who are in this cohort who were 18, 19, or 20 when they committed the crime. And we don't have the exact number of people who would be parole eligible right away as a result of this decision, but it's over 100. So that means that there are at least 100 people who are incarcerated right now who now will have the opportunity to appear before the parole board, and the parole board can decide whether or not they're ready to be released back into society.
Okay, and I think for a lot of people, Suffolk DA District Attorney Kevin Hayden put out a statement to say, like, families who are impacted by this or concerned about this should reach out directly to his office. I think it's important to emphasize as well that this is not a get-out-of-jail-free card, right? So that process, can you talk a little bit about what this will mean?
Absolutely. The parole board takes its responsibility very seriously, and parole release is a complicated process. So what happens now is that we will be working to assign lawyers to everyone who's parole eligible or going to be parole eligible very soon. And then the lawyer and the client will work together very closely to prepare themselves to make sure that they're ready to show the board that the release is compatible with the welfare of society. Through that process, there's the opportunities for families, for the victims' families, and for people who are concerned to be involved. And one way that they do that is that the parole board hearing itself is open to the public, and there's the opportunity for people to testify both in support and against parole. The parole board makes decisions very carefully, and they do grant parole, but they also deny parole. And what happens if they deny parole is that someone then gets a chance to go back to the board some years later when at an interval the parole board decides.
And this is not just like, obviously that is just to have the opportunity for the possibility of getting parole, which is, of course, then you're still serving out your sentence just in the community. And anyone who's deemed too dangerous to coexist in society will not be released.
Will never be released,
yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
right.
I think that's important to emphasize. Yeah.
Yes, this is not a ticket to freedom by any means.
You have been, in your reporting and speaking with people who are working with people who are incarcerated or, are kind of there's a lot of joy around this as well, I think, for people who directly work with people who are incarcerated and have been looking for other options, or have a really, I think, don't want to be judged by, I think, was it Ruth Greenberg, the attorney, who said that they don't want to be judged by their worst day, right? Like worst mistake, or a mistake they made when they were a teenager, right? Like, what are you hearing about people directly from their clients?
A lot of folks, well, it's only been about a week and a half since the decision came down, but people who are incarcerated started hearing pretty quickly through the grapevine. And Ruth mentioned, and other attorneys mentioned, like, people are elated. Like, there's even family members reaching out to attorneys being like, would my significant other or my son be eligible for this? And if they realize, hey, maybe they will be, it's joy, because these are folks who had been sentenced to life without parole. Like, you're never getting out of prison. And now there's even a small chance that they could be released from prison and serve time in society. So that's like a really big change in perspective, not just for the prisoners, but for their families as well. Right.
And I think she was saying that it's people who have been good for the sake of being good, I guess, or been doing all of the right things and really trying to rehabilitate themselves in the face of, in conditions that are not inherently rehabilitative, right? But just for the benefit of themselves and for their own growth, they will be rewarded first.
Well, I think the order that people are going to be considered to go before the parole board sort of goes with, the parole board is going to be calculating when someone's parole date would have been. And so if someone's like a senior citizen or has been incarcerated for decades, those folks will be considered first to go before the parole board, and then other people will be considered afterward. But I think it's just a tremendous opportunity for people, and I think it's going to be a significant strain on the parole board, but they take plenty of time to consider each case very thoroughly.
And if I may, it's also really interesting. We can't really predict who's going to go first or how they're going to go, because while we'll be assigning counsel as soon as possible, people may have reasons that they want to take their time. So some people will want to retain experts, forensic psychologists or social workers, social service advocates, to make sure their release plan is really strong. So at the end of the day, we'll see who goes first, but we're not really sure yet.
That makes a lot of sense. I hadn't considered how they would really want to be able to make the best case. If we can just quickly talk about the strain on the parole board, I mean, is this going to be something, this isn't going to happen overnight, right? Like, what are we looking at in terms of?
We're going to have some people in the group who are going to feel really strongly about going as soon as possible. So we may see some hearings in the first few months. Many people are going to want to work closely with their lawyer too. They've been incarcerated for decades. Some of them are in their 80s, and they're going to be working and deciding what's right for them. So I don't have a crystal ball about this, but I'm thinking that probably in 6 months from now, we're going to see a lot more people starting to schedule hearings. But we might see some pretty soon.
Okay, that's crazy to think about people in their 80s who.
And like, a lot of these parole hearings before parole board they're scheduled weeks and months out, so they already have a full roster. And in the past year, there's also been more clemency requests and also termination of parole requests that are on their table. So the real question is, like, will these be backlogged or not? Like, how are they going to prioritize these? Will they need additional parole board members? Will that even matter? And it'll be interesting to see how it plays out.
Right, and is it even a possibility to bring in additional resources for the parole board? So we'll see. All right, thank you both so much for being here. Thank you for your work.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Finally, tonight, state lawmakers are considering legislation that would expand the bottle bill, which puts a returnable deposit on carbonated drink containers to help promote recycling. The expansion would cover more kinds of beverages and raise the deposit amount. Advocates say it would reduce litter, but could it also hurt recycling efforts? GBH News' Craig Lamolt has more.
You look out at the beautiful scenery, it's gorgeous, and then you look down and you look like, it's a garbage patch right here.
Mary Lou Nicholson says there'd be a lot less trash on this beach if one thing changed in Massachusetts, the bottle bill.
It's mostly non-carbonated beverages, and it drives me crazy. because we wouldn't see so many of these if we just update the bottle bill and cover these things.
The current law puts a deposit of 5 cents on containers of carbonated drinks. So water, iced tea, and all kinds of other drinks aren't included. Now, state lawmakers are considering a bill to include these and to raise the deposit amount to 10 cents.
Single-use plastic is out of control, and it's been out of control for a really long time.
Massachusetts has the lowest bottle redemption rate in the country. It's only 38%. Supporters say an expanded bottle bill would change this.
All right, well, let's take a look and see what we've got in this recycling container. So here we go. Here's a craft brewing can, 5 cents. If they're worth a dime, I bet someone would have come along and picked them out.
The bill would save towns like Arlington money. The bottle redemption system is paid for by beverage companies, but for the stuff in your recycling bin, your city or town is picking up the tab. Arlington didn't used to pay for recycling because the expense was offset by the value of the material collected. But the value of that stuff dropped, and starting next year, Arlington is going to have to pay a processing fee for its recycling.
Now we're looking at $100, $120 a ton. So we, in Arlington, recycle 5,000 tons per year, about. So that's a significant jump in what our costs are going to be.
One group that's against the new bill is recycling companies. Companies like Casella make money based on the weight of the material they accept, and then again when they sell that recyclable material. So taking bottles out of your recycling hits their bottom line twice.
When you think about, expanding a bottle bill, you're really running a redundant system. You're taking some of that high-value material out of the existing recycling stream, putting it back on the consumer to do that sorting on their own, and then making it a little bit less convenient for them to get their products into the recycling stream at an additional cost.
As for the issue of reducing litter, Weld says the time to address that problem is before the bottles get to the recycling stage.
I think that it starts with the social construct of, well, let's not litter to begin with, and let's care about the planet enough to pick up, regardless of whether or not it's a 10-cent return or not.
An expanded bottle bill has been attempted several times before. Supporters hope this time the outcome will be different.
That's it for tonight, but come back tomorrow for Talking Politics. Adam Riley will talk to State Representative Hannah Kane, the regional co-chair of Women for Nikki, on New Hampshire primary results and whether there's still a path to victory for Nikki Haley. Plus, a look at Governor Healey's new budget plan, her proposal to allow cities and towns to raise local taxes, and the $15,000 raises she's giving members of her cabinet. That and more tomorrow at 7. Thanks for watching. I'm Tori Bedford. Good night.
Brand